Welcome to the Mentera Wizard tutorial video. In this video, you will see how to work with the Mentera Wizard. Mentera is a Windows Forms application that you can use to generate web pages for navigating and editing your database. Mentera also creates a set of middle-tier data access components that you can use as a starting point for your website application. First, we are going to create a new database and a new data model for our demonstration. Go over to desktop here and we'll double click on SQL Server Management Studio, and we're going to connect to an instance of SQL Server running on this laptop. Click the connect, expand the database folder, select the database folder, right click, say new database. We're going to put in my database for our demonstration. Click OK. This will create a new database. Expand the database folder, expand the table folder, right click over table, say new table. We're going to add a couple tables to our data model. We'll say table 1 ID. We're going to make this a unique identifier. Don't allow nulls, and we'll right click over this area and select set primary key. This will create an index and make sure it's a unique key to the table. Next column we're going to add is a description column. We're going to make it a var 50, and it can't be null. That's our first table. Click the X box, we'll save that, hit yes, and we'll call this table 1. Then we're going to create another table, so right click over here. This one is going to be a foreign key back to the first table. We're going to call it parent ID, so it has to be a unique identifier. Don't allow nulls. We'll right click over this area and create an index. Select indexes. We'll say add, and we want it on parent ID, and we want it with not unique, so we can have more than one item in our list. Click OK, and that creates the index. And then we want to add another field here, column called item, and we'll also make that var 50, and it has to be set. And we hit the X, we save this table. We're going to hit yes, and we'll call this table 2. The next thing we want to do, let's hit X over here. Next thing we want to do is create a data model diagram. So we expand the database diagram folder. You'll get this the first time. Do you want to support databases? Hit yes. You want to support diagrams? Hit yes. Right click over the database diagram, set new diagram, and we'll add both tables and hit close. Then we right click over this. We'll say table view custom. So now we have a custom view, and we'll right click over this one, table view custom. It's nice, it just shows the columns and the types and whether they're nullable or not. Next thing we want to do, we have our indexes for fast lookup. The next thing we want to do is create a relationship between these two tables so we don't leave stranded data in our database. So to create the relationship, go in this little square to the left of parent ID, and you do left mouse click, hold it down, and you drag this over to the primary key over here, and this will pop up a few dialog boxes. Click OK, and that creates our relationship between the two tables. And we'll adjust our relationship object a little bit, make it look nicer. Alright, and now our data model is complete. We click the save floppy disk, and we're going to call this the data model diagram. Click OK, and then we want to save the changes to the two tables. Click yes. If you want to print this out, SQL Server Management Studio doesn't do the best job of printing out data models. It splits them off multiple pages. If you want your entire data model on one page, go to Edit and say Copy Diagram to Clipboard, and then paste it into Microsoft Word. That's your best bet. Okay, let's X that. The next thing we need to do is we want to create a user account for this instance of SQL Server. So we go to Security tab. We look under Logins. We want to create a new login. So we right click, say New Login. We're going to call this User 1. We're going to use SQL Server Authentication, and we're going to use Gandalf, G-A-N-D-A-L-F for the password, G-A-N-D-A-L-F. We're not going to enforce password policy, and we're going to make my database the default database. This will allow us to connect to this instance of SQL Server. There's our user account right here. Next thing we're going to do is for this database within this instance of SQL Server, we got to add that user account. So we got to go to Security, and we say Users, and this will allow this new user 1 to access this database. So we say user 1, and we hit the ellipses over here. We say user 1, check names, that gets the account, and we click OK. So now this user 1 has access to this database, but now we have to set the rights privileges. So to do that, we go under security, we go to schemas, we go down to DBO, which is the default schema object. So we right click on it and we say properties, and we say permissions, and we go over here, we say add, and you put user 1, check names, there's our user, and then here's our permissions. We want to grant delete records, execute stored procedures, insert records, select records, and update records. And we click OK. And now our user is, our data model's ready, and we have a user account to access our new database. So let's close SQL Server Management Studio. Next, we need to create some output folders for running the Mentera wizard. Go over to Computer, right-click Explore, go to the C drive. The first folder we're going to create, right-click over in this area, say New Folder. We're going to create a temp folder. This will be where the files initially get put by the running the Mentera wizard. Then we're going to need a new folder for our website. So we create a new folder. We're going to call it Demo 1. And we go underneath Demo 1, we're going to create a new folder called Website 1. This will be our first website under here. And then we'll go in that folder, and we want to create a few directories. And the first one we're going to create is App Code. This is where the Mentera's middle tier data access components are going to be put. And then we create a new folder called Admin. These are the web pages used for editing the database. And we're going to create another folder called CSS. This will contain the style sheets needed by the Mentera web pages, so the output looks pretty. And then the last folder we're going to create is a JavaScript folder. This will contain a JS file, which will be loaded to the browser, which is used for doing client-side data validation by the Mentera web pages. Okay, so now we have our folders. Let's exit the File Explorer. Next, we are going to create a new website project within Visual Studio. Let's go over to Visual Studio 2008, we launch it, and we say File, Open, an existing website since we created the folders. And we navigate over to Demo 1, there's our website, and we open it. And there are our folders. One of the things you want to do here is the solution file, the SLN file, is under our documents for this user account. We want to keep the SLN file under the same folder, Demo 1. So what we're going to do is you select Solution and you go File, Save As, Save Website 1.sln as, and we go over to our computer and we go into Demo 1, and we're going to create a new folder called SLN. The reason that this is nice to do is that it keeps all the files. If you have project settings and you move that folder, you lose all your project settings. By keeping the SLN under a directory under the Demo 1, it saves all your settings. Okay, that's it for now. We're going to run the Mentera wizard next. So let's exit Visual Studio, and we're going to save to the SLN file. Hit yes. Next, we're going to run Internet Explorer. We double click on it. It'll bring us to the Mentera website. You fill out the form to register for the free trial version. When you click on the button, you'll get sent an email. You click on that link inside the email, it'll complete your registration and bring you to this page. We already have an account set up. We log into that account, and you're at this page where you have the launch button. When we launch Mentera the first time, it uses Click Once deployment. It's going to download the Windows Form application to your machine, so we click on it. It'll bring up, there's the digital signature for the application. Click on Run. It's downloading the application, and it brings us to the license and registration dialog box. We're going to need this key right here to register. We move this window a little bit, and we're going to need this key right here. So we come back to here and we type in those numbers. There's our key, 1182.2040.0011. You only have to do this once. Once we register, we can now connect to our SQL Server instance and start running the wizard. For now, we're just going to cancel it. going to come back to our web page here. When we refresh, you'll notice that the machine ID is now set. The next time you run Minterra, it will you won't have to go through this process. You'll just come right to the first page of the wizard.